Hi everyone, it's Ana Maria. I am here with Annette. Well, she'll be joining us in a minute, but wanting to just welcome you all to Place at the Table. It's a weekly conversation with change makers, folks who are out there on the front lines of making a difference in the world, and just super excited. In the last couple months, we've been having Mama Artivists have been the focus, to bringing in women artists who are also radical change makers in all kinds of different areas. So just really excited about the series, and super excited specifically today to have a powerful, amazing guest who I am about to with. Yay! Here she is, waiting. Welcome everybody who's joining us. Hi, yay, it worked. Okay, good. Um, so I'm also like a regular mom, have a phone that's about to lose battery, so I am plugged in.
Mine is plugged
so
in.
I'm holding my phone for the
oh
first. No, it's okay. For the first 15 minutes, and I'm also trying to be kind of quiet because I don't want to wake up my youngest son. So we always have this during his nap time to be able to allow me to have a little space to have a conversation. But welcome, and I'm so excited to see you.
I'm so excited too.
So what we're gonna do, how we always start, this is very much a fluid conversation. Again, it's really about amplifying Poderosa voices who are out there doing incredible work. And you know, I through this series, I got to know about you and your work, and so I'm super excited to learn more about you, and also have our community know who you are and be able to continue to support the work that you're doing. So how would you like to introduce yourself, and just, we always ask in the beginning who you are, and if you could tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got here.
Hello everybody. My name is Annette, Zaragoza-Cerritos. I actually changed it back to my mom's maiden name this year. So that's a very interesting thing that I did. So I changed my name. I just had bucket lists. So I think the thing that would encompass who I am the most is that I am an abolitionist. I think that affects every part of my life. So it affects the way that I'm a mother, the choices that I make, the things that I buy, the people I support, the messages I allow, inside of my brain, and my healing. Pretty much all of it is just based in liberation.
Yeah.
Black liberation. I really believe that that's the key to. It's not as simplistic as that, but once we achieve Black liberation,
we're all free.
Yeah. I think we can actually start getting things done. To actually be free. So I'm an abolitionist. I'm an artist. I am a healing artist. That's how I release my pain. And it's been so weird because this past year I just have felt really led by spirit. And art is even if I'm depressed, it feels like I can't describe the feeling, but there's something inside that I can't take out unless I create or make whatever my body or mind is telling me to make. So I'm an artist and I'm an abolitionist. I'm a mom. I'm a friend. I'm a survivor. I feel like everything. Women are everything. I don't know. Women are everything. Yeah.
And it's all connected. All of those are not you're not these individual things.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when you become a mother, I definitely lost myself for a couple of years. I think my son just turned 8 and I'm barely starting to kind of, just come back into who I was.
Yeah.
So that's been pretty cool.
You have 2 kids or 1 kid?
I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old.
A 5-year-old, 8-year-old. So I feel that it's like the fog. It's I did that because I literally describe it as your head is coming out of the fog. And so welcome back.
I know. I feel like even just as simple as putting on makeup or I don't know, because I really everything I do like 100%. That's something I'm working on because it's not healthy. But I just do it like, I'm just going to do this. And then motherhood has been really hard because it's like, you can't do that.
No.
Because you have to be a mom and you have to do everything else.
Yeah.
So it's not like a project that you can just work on and finish. It's just something
right.
to continue.
Yeah. Work on and finish. It's never over.
Mm-hmm.
The never end.
How old are your kids?
So I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. So it's very similar, but similar ages right now. And my 9-year-old has been really struggling a lot with mental health. And so it's funny because I just felt like I got out of the fog with a 3-year-old, but I'm still always in the fog with my 9-year-old.
Can I ask you, like, how did you notice that he was struggling, or like?
Yeah. So
if you want to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because I've never talked about him in this way in this space, but I also think when we were originally you and I were originally talking about how as mothers we hide we hide the things that we feel like we're failing at, or we hide the places where we don't feel like we're doing well, or we hide our struggles.
Right.
And in the end, it doesn't wind up serving anybody, including ourselves, right? So I think even in my professional space, even though I talk a lot about mothering and I work a lot about mothering, I don't often share the immense struggle that I'm having with my oldest, because he's also in the midst of it right now, and so we're literally every day is a journey and figuring it out. But I would say about the age of 4, I knew something was happening. He had really crazy violent fits, like screaming, like would just get so enraged that seemed way beyond his years. And we've been just trying to figure out. We've been on a journey for the last 5 years to really figure out how to serve him, to be able to really understand what's happening with him, to understand how our own things that we're doing are reinforcing things that are not helping or helping. It's been a huge learning curve, and while also trying, like you said, to
right.
I'm a full out Felicia as well. I feel you in that,
I know.
1,000%.
I feel like there's times when my children will do something that I do that's terrible, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I taught them that. And then it's also a way to reflect, because we love our children unconditionally. When they misbehave, it doesn't mean we stop loving them.
Right.
So that's been a really healing way, I think. Becoming a mother is seeing ourselves reflected through their eyes, and having that love and grace, right?
Yeah.
And then also being well, why am I responding like that? Where did I learn this behavior?
Right.
Why do I obviously do this behavior enough so that my child is picking up on it?
Right.
Or whatever it is. Right now it's cursing. I'm like, no, you're not supposed to be with me this much.
Oh my God.
So we made a deal okay, I'll stop cursing because it's hard if you get hurt or something. And he'll stop cursing. But he's also at this age kind of trying to find himself,
right.
Who is he? What is his identity? But my son also has had struggles. He has sensory issues. Mm-hmm. So he the way he communicates is through touch. So he touches everything. Yeah. And as you can imagine, especially right now, that's the worst thing.
You're don't touch anything.
Yeah, I'm don't touch anything. So when he was really little, I noticed my friend had a tortoise, and he got on his hands and knees and greeted it with his head. And I was
wow.
I was that's so weird because I've never seen it before, but it's when I went to the sweat lodge, that's how people say hello, is they touch foreheads.
Yeah.
So I was I'm kids, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm is it weird? Is it sensory issues, or is it just a cultural, thing?
That's rooted in him, that he's literally, so that piece also is a whole other level. Both my children are adopted. Mm-hmm. And so when my oldest son was born, I was in the room with his birth mother, who we were we are very close, but she was very much I want you to be there. I want you to hold him first. So the minute he came out, expression was like, he had this expression like, fuck, here I am. He was
like, what did you do?
Totally, like he just was this old soul. You could tell the amount of what he was holding already, and he was a newborn. And I mean, I think about it. My second son, who was much more like the world was kind of like this thing. He was looking around. He was not like he was just very, very. It was like an old.
You know what? That's so funny because my son also, people would stop to tell me like he's such an old soul when he's like 4 months old, and I was like, what do they mean? Like, what does that even mean? He's like a little blob, like
right.
Like, how can you tell that he's an old soul? But he was like super alert. Like he was always very alert. And I've been trying to work with him really hard to make, because he has a lot of like the alertness turns to anxiety.
Yeah.
And then I always think like I see him, and when he can lead, like if we're hiking and he's a leader and he's telling us where to go, he's like in his element.
Yes.
But then like imagine that person like in a classroom.
Yes.
Or
they sound very similar.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's not gonna work. He can't lead the class or gather groups and things like that. So I think
not yet. Eventually.
Not yet. Yeah. So I think the struggle is like helping them with, and also there's like epigenetics and have you read the book The Deepest Well?
No, but I need to.
Oh yeah. So The Deepest Well, it's written by the first ever Californian Surgeon General, and she's this amazing, beautiful Black doctor who looks like a model, and I'm like, how can you be everything? Like, it's not there. She's like gorgeous and the most intelligent person that I know. And she wrote this book, and the whole book is about how our early childhood experiences, as well as our genetic makeup and our parents and our ancestral trauma, 100% affects our physical health. And how people don't realize the link. And she has a lot of case studies. So she has a case study of like a boy who was being abused, but he wasn't growing. And they were trying to start hormone therapy and all of these things. And it just turned out that he needed to heal from that abuse. Like he needed to get it out of him and have somebody listen and to write it out. And once they started talk therapy, he started growing. So it's so funny. Like, to me, I feel like medicine is completely missing like the spiritual soul level. And it's so bizarre to me because like every other country includes that.
Yeah.
For us,
No,
and
really. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's so deeply missing in the way that we think about healing and helping. I just wanted to amplify. Angela was just sharing about Parenting for Liberation. If people know about that website and that organization, I do. They're incredible, and just I think the piece of understanding where we come from, understanding what's happening in society, also like the amount of doctors that don't have a racial awareness.
Right. She talks about that in the book as well, like the racial bias.
Yes.
How that affects she talks about how people of color, BIPOC people, especially Black people, racism is so ingrained in us that we believe, and they believe the same thing during slavery, just that like we are able to take on more pain, or that we are stronger. And for example, like a white woman would be more delicate, so she might need more attention, more medicine, right? And that's just it causes, you look at the mortality rates and it's all there. I don't know how the birth was, but for me, my firstborn was like terrible. It was so hard, and part of it is because I literally had to tell the doctor to listen to me. I was like, this is my body.
Yes.
I need you to stop talking, and I need you to listen to me. And that's,
good for you.
Well, I was like, listen to me. I didn't say it like that. I wasn't like, I was like, shut up.
Oh. Well, the name of the book is The Deepest Well. Is that what it is?
The Deepest Well. It changed my life because, for so many reasons. Like, one thing I always struggled with was like losing weight, right? Now it's like every time I was like losing weight, I would just like quit or like just stop. And I know losing weight is not the objective, but it would even when it happened like accidentally, like if I started running and I lost weight, then I would kind of feel really uncomfortable. And in that book, they did a case study where they got the information because they accidentally, so there was a case study of a bunch of women that had lost like hundreds of pounds, like 300 pounds. And then right before they met their goal, which was like they had 5 pounds left or something small to reach their goal, a lot of them quit. And what do you call it? The scientist or the person running the experiment was wondering why. Like, why would you lose 200 pounds and then quit right before your goal weight when you and then it turns out when they were interviewing them, the question I think was like, when was the last time you had sex? But he asked them, when was the first time you had sex? And it turned out that a lot of them had been abused when they were really young. And the weight kind of
protection
as a protection. And when you become more vulnerable to that, your body wants to go back and protect itself. So it's so interesting how, like, imagine if we approached everything with that amount of grace of like, our bodies, the way that we live our lives, the unhealthy coping mechanisms we have, the unhealthy reactions we have, it's all just been our body's way of surviving up until this point, and it's worked for us. It's 100% worked for us. But now, if we're noticing that it's not working for us anymore, then that's now we're ready to move on to kind of the next level. But I used to, after I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, like all of this like shame and guilt that I felt for an individual failure, I realized was so much more, like it was bigger than me. It was bigger than, and it's society and like the image, just kind of everything, patriarchy, because why should women feel threatened if they look, a certain way? So just kind of all of it. It all went together. But the book, I really recommend it.
I just wrote it, The Deepest Well by Nadine Burke Harris.
Yeah, Nadine Burke Harris. I'm actually going to be speaking at a conference in September. We had to reschedule it, but she's a keynote speaker, and it's called the California Student Wellness.
Oh, I love
mental wellness. But now it's like, how do we? It's so funny because like when you're, like for me, like this pandemic has been like, oh my God, we have to help all our children because now they're gonna have mental health issues. And it's like, whoa, what about the kids that their parents have been in jail, or they've been living in poverty, or they've been homeless, like, or their parents were deported. Like, I taught for about 10 years. I have a master's in education, and I saw that all the time, where it's like they couldn't even, and then a lot of them get diagnosed with learning disabilities because they can't retain,
like, what's happening at home, or like what's happening in the environment.
Yeah, but it's because the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that controls memory, gets shut down during traumatic responses. So you don't formulate, like you can't retain short-term. And since my brother passed away, like I 100% feel that. Like I like can't remember people's name that I just met. I can't, and it's like your body's in a concussion
mode. It's in your brain,
and it takes time to heal. But if you're in school and you're like, why can't you memorize your multiplication facts, and you have all of this going on as a kid, and then your teachers, that's why I'm an abolitionist even in the classroom. Like, I always had the classroom that people would send kids that had trouble. And they would always be like, they're never in the office anymore. What happened? Or like, what did you do? And it's like, I just like loved them.
That's the whole person.
Yeah, I'm like, I just saw that they were having a hard time. They weren't trying to give me a hard time. They were having a hard time.
Right.
Well, and I looked to see what was good in them, and I just saw them who they were. I don't know.
When I was before I moved to Los Angeles, I was working with a social service agency called Lifelines Community Arts Project in Brooklyn, New York. So like as a young artist, that's actually where I got a lot of my initial work as a young creator, was through this social service agency. I was working with social group workers inside of a community, Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which, I would say 95% Latino, maybe like 85% Latino, the other percent African American. I mean, definitely not. There were the folks there that were definitely inside of like the Black brown struggle inside of like South Brooklyn, dealing with familial sort of immigration stuff, which obviously looked very different 20 years ago, but not that different in terms of
Not that different.
but also dealing with just economic disenfranchisement, like people's families, like like cycles of abuse, all of these kinds of things.
And she talks about how those racism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and all the microaggressions that we face every day, they lead to heart disease, diabetes, cancer, heart attack. And then the news says, oh, it's because BIPOC people are not healthy. They eat junk food. It's like, well, white people are also eating junk food.
Absolutely. Right? Our entire country is eating junk food.
Right. Everybody's,
corn
it's like
sugar.
We have to, and that's that. This year I've been all about that. That's how I had a hard time healing my mother wound with my mother, and I'm still working on it. But one of the ways that I was able to finally do it, like my heart and my mind finally, because I knew it in my brain.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew that, she had a 3rd grade education. Was an immigrant, undocumented. Like, how is she supposed, victim of like war, survivor of war, survivor of trauma, and like, how is she supposed to take care of me? Like, how is she supposed to maneuver this environment? Like, from a very objective point of view, I understood.
Yeah.
But in my heart, I didn't understand. Like, why couldn't she protect me? Or like, why didn't she love me enough to protect me? But when I started looking at white supremacy and the structure, I was like, I can't hate my mom. I need to hate this structure. I need to hate this system that doesn't help my mom, that makes life for my mom miserable, know? And now, with what happened to my family, like, she's disabled now. She's homeless technically.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there knows how to get her home, shout out, hit me up in the DMs.
Yeah.
We went to apply to so many things, and the waiting lists were 10 years waiting list for low income housing. And in order to put her on that list, they wanted me to, the only way you can do that is if you like prove you're homeless, which means you have to like live at a shelter. So she's been sleeping on my couch and my sister's couch. And I was like, I'm not going to put my mom in a shelter so she qualifies to go on a list.
You can qualify.
Like, what are you talking about? And it just seems so, like, having to go through all of this experience. I feel like I'm an abolitionist. I'm like, burn it all, start it new. Let's just reimagine everything. But that's not realistic. So, I mean, yes, it is realistic. But for the time being, I know it is realistic. But for the time being, we can take these structures and, make them fit our people. Because right now they don't fit our kids.
Well, isn't it interesting when we're talking about like what's missing in the approach to medicine is so connected to what's missing inside of the approach of, like, whether it's policing or schooling or housing or all of it, it's not rooted in the human decency and care, right? Like, idea of us moving back into a space. I mean, that's what I was saying about Lifeline's Community Arts Project. It was such an organization whose mission and every being was rooted in love and care. And when people came into the program, it was like those kids who were having such a struggle would all of a sudden start coming to class and doing their work and being engaged because we were listening to them, we were engaged with them,
and like
we were loving.
So in the deepest well at the very end, you can take a quiz, and based on your score on this quiz, it tells you your probability of getting like diabetes or heart cancer or things like that. I scored, but you can score like a maximum 10. I have like a 10. It's really bad. But now I know, I can take steps to help myself. So I become a vegetarian. I quit alcohol. This year, I'm just like, I'm a new person. But it's like, once we know that information, now I have the tools to make decisions on my own. And if I want to continue to do nothing, that's my decision, right? I've made that decision for myself. But so she has that, you can take that quiz at the end of the book. The ACE score quiz, it stands for like adverse childhood events, but also Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, well, I was going to ask you because you're talking
about, now it's going to bother me. I'm like,
no, it's okay.
Well, yes. She said, like, your program, so you, like, we can't prevent trauma, right? If it happens, it happens. So how can we, like, how can we heal it? And having a connection with an adult, that's one of the biggest ways to heal a person from their trauma, having somebody you can confide in, that you can feel safe around. And for some of us, like for me, my parents were not people that I could attach to, so I attached to my brother. So my brothers and I were really close, so we attached to each other. And that happens a lot. I think if you've been seeing families where there's a lot of trauma, the siblings are very close. And then it's like, why are the siblings? I mean, not always. Sometimes the siblings are not close. But usually when the siblings are not close, it's because there's usually like a black sheep. I was going to start an Instagram called Latinx Black Sheep because I'm like, what if we gathered all the black sheeps and put them together? Just let them come up with a way to make things better,
Well, I'm curious how community has occurred in your own healing, because we can say, yes, you have access to the resources or knowledge, but community, people who love and care about you, like you said, like the adult who is like you can confide in and connect with, and who keeps you safe and is safe with you, like all of those things are such a part of our healing. I'm curious, like, who your community is and who have been the people that have like really surrounded you with love.
I see Aida is here. Hi, Aida.
Yay.
I love Aida. She was my sister in another life, so we found each other again. You know what? I had a crush on this boy for like 11 years. And he always was telling me that I needed community. And I did not know what's that. I was like, I don't even know what community is. And then my kids went to a preschool, and they were like, everybody was saying this is like a really good community. And I didn't know what that community meant either. That community meant more like of a networking community. But I think when all of this, so the story, my littlest brother, should you want to like,
absolutely
encapsulate it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Please share.
I hate telling this story. It's terrible. I wish I might just like print something out and show it to the screen.
Give it to people, leaflets.
Right. I've been saying just Google me. I'm just like, just Google it. Like, it's all false information, but just Google it. So my littlest brother had untreated schizophrenia. He was 26, and he shot everybody in my family. He shot a bunch of other people as well, but my mom was the only one that survived. So that was really difficult. He's in jail right now. He shot my brother, Carlos, who was an organizer. So he was in the movement, fighting for it. He and I went to UCLA together. It was amazing. He was like my BFF. Aida was his ex-girlfriend, so now she's my girlfriend. Just kidding.
You're like, sort of.
So I took her. I'm like, no, you're my girlfriend. And it was really difficult. I feel like that was a catalyst for this like entire change. That, like, everything that I thought was true or everything that I knew was just kind of shattered. But
and this was a year ago, correct?
Was it a year ago, like a couple of days ago? So this just barely was.
Oh my God. Well, hey, the fact that you're able to keep telling the story, though, I know that
I hope it gets to a point where I'm not like, where I can kind of just tell it. But it was very difficult, and it was very difficult for everybody in our community. Like, one of the most healing things, I mean, at the time I felt like I couldn't like analyze it because I was in it,
Right.
But now looking back, I'm like, the funeral, it was like 300 people. They didn't even fit, people were sitting outside, and there was people, my brother was like so loved, and so just seeing the community come out, Las Cafeteras, like, they put his face on guitars, and like, they played him at the Hollywood Bowl, and I don't know, just like there were so many, they did so many beautiful things for him.
Yeah.
And that to me was, I think that's been the most difficult part of the pandemic, is because that community is now gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're all kind of alone in our struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And we can still FaceTime and things like that, but there's something about just like coming together to be together.
Yeah.
That is just healing, even if you don't talk or do anything, even if you just sit around and just choose to share space with each other, right?
Yeah.
So what was the question?
No, I think I was asking just about, I mean, you're
like community,
yeah, like
community has been, in order to be in community, you have to allow yourself two things I've realized that I could not ever do. The first thing is to admit you need help, because my role in my family was the strong one, right? The one that took care of everything for everybody else. And then when everything happened, I was still that person. I had to take care of my mom, my brother. I had to plan double funerals. You know, I had to do everything by myself, and I had to just keep going, you know, and just push through. And the second thing is like so the first thing is realizing you need help.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you're like, no, it's fine, I got it. It's fine, I got it. It's fine, I got it. Especially if you have anxiety and you like to control things, like you rather just do it. But then the second thing is like actually allowing people to help you.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's like a shame that comes with that, because like I'm an independent, strong woman. I'm smart. Like nobody tells me what to do. I do what I want, right?
But and that's why we need to be talking about this. That's why we need to talk, because I don't care how independent and strong you are, you need community, right?
Yeah, like you cannot do it on your own.
Nobody can do it on their own.
But you also like when you're so full of trauma from people. Yeah. Being raw and open and vulnerable with people with your pain is very difficult, you know? And there's a quote that I read that if a Latinx person expresses their mental health concerns to a doctor, that it should be taken extremely serious, because for our culture to do that means that we must really be struggling. Right. Right. And that's sad. Yeah. Like, that's so sad. And I think, it's worked for us, right? Because it's like, you just got to make that bread, you know, make that money, secure that bag, push those feelings. You just got to keep working. And I think our parents did a great job of making us great workers, like hard workers, disciplined, you know, we never give up. Like, we keep going, and we have that resilience in us, and it's beautiful. And that's why we're amazing. That's why like all BIPOC people are just so amazing. And, you know, I automatically feel at ease because I know how hard everything is.
But that's not sustainable. Like, it's not humanly
it's not. And then it manifests like in the deepest well. Nadine Burke says it manifests as like chronic
diabetes,
or like a chronic, or like an autoimmune disorder, like a chronic disease, or a bad back, or, you know, shoulder pain, or headaches, you know, like stomach aches, gas, you know, like your body can only take so much before it's like, listen, I'm not doing well and I need some help. Yeah. But then, because the way our medicine, you know, works is like, people don't like, that's why I love that she's a doctor, because she's like, doctors, you need to talk to your patients. You need to ask them what's going on in their lives. You need to get a full, you know, and I think everybody should be in therapy. You know, my brother, the day before he did what he did, we were going to take him to get a full psychiatric evaluation, because, and for that to happen, for my parents to agree to that, it means that he was just really, there was no way of hiding it anymore. And it makes me so sad, because, I mean, there's so many things that come into play, right? Because the police, right? When the police are involved, the person with mental health issues is 16 times more likely to be killed. Yeah. So that my brother, I have text messages where he's like, don't you dare call the police. Like, don't do it. We'll handle it. We'll take care of it. And since this has happened, and I've just been like, we need to fucking do something about it. Because, like, my brother didn't die for nothing, right? My brother's not going to be in jail forever for nothing. Like, you know, my mom's not disabled for nothing. My dad didn't die for nothing. Like, his kids, you know, didn't lose their mom for nothing. Like, this man, you know, lost his, like, we need to, something needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I am a big fan of like being honest, like where did I fuck up?
Yeah.
Right. And so like I blamed myself. I was like, I didn't do enough. Where could I have done more? What could I have done? And I went through like a list of just like where could I have influenced the situation.
Yeah.
And there were things. There obviously were things. You have to be honest, like, yes, you know, I definitely could have done these things, but then I went past it, you know, because of my healing. I was like, I am not enough.
It's not like, you. Yeah.
Yeah. There's more than me. What about our trauma? What about my dad also had a mental illness?
Yeah.
The drug addiction.
Yeah.
For years, and we suffered. When my father passed away, it was so weird because he was murdered, but I was so relieved. I was like, fuck, thank God. Like for the first time in my life, I felt this weight just like leave my body, and I never had understood like how scared I grew. I grew up so scared of him, you know? I grew up so scared of him harming me because he had, you know, because he was unpredictable, and with drugs it made it worse.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I don't know, I just feel like I have a perspective that it's like my brother killed my other brother, and one's in jail, the other one's dead, but they're still both my brothers.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously what he did is terrible and horrible, but also he's mentally unwell.
Yeah.
And right now he is in jail in like the suicide unit for people that want to kill themselves, but there's like the coronavirus is killing them whether or not they want to kill themselves.
Right.
And he, you know, and I'm like, why are you even caring that if they kill themselves or not, if like they're literally in a place that is killing
that's gonna kill them.
It just makes like all these things. I'm like,
it's well, the imprisonment of people who, like, again, the amount of, I don't know the statistic, but the amount of people that are in prison that are suffering from mental illness or even something like autism or something, you know, it's
super high.
It's criminal.
Yeah.
The system is criminal.
So I worked on after all of this happened, my friends were like, you have to meet Patrice. And I'm sorry to say I didn't really know who she was. Now everybody knows who she is. But she also has a brother with mental health issues. So she had kind of been through the system. And we got together. And it was so weird. Like, we ended up having gone to the same high school for a year. On the same intersection when we were little.
Wow.
Like, she and I are the same age. Her, just like we have similar birthdays. Like her father's name is Gabriel, my son's name is Gabriel. Just like all these weird, you know, like when you meet somebody and you're like, oh shit, I'm supposed to meet this person.
Yes.
This person is like a really
influential sister.
Yeah, like this person is like an influential part of my life, and I'm just like a huge fan of her. I'm like, anything she does, just like do it. Whatever she says, do it.
Whatever she says.
Give her all your money and just do whatever she wants.
Totally.
She's gorgeous.
Well,
can I finish it?
Absolutely.
So I worked with her on Measure R, which was to help the mental health and help the disabled population and all of that, and it passed, right? And when I would go visit my brother in jail, I would talk to people and I would say, don't forget to vote for Measure R, don't forget to vote for Measure R. I see you, Miguel and Aida also helped in Measure R.
Yes.
And they would always say, thank you so much. I didn't know about this. My son also has schizophrenia. Every person that I talked to on the elevator on the way down from the visiting rooms, all of their children had schizophrenia. And then I remember just sitting outside crying because I'm like, all of our children are so sick.
Yes.
And we're not getting help. We're just being punished. And then the saddest thing to me is like, now that everything happened and I'm like an advocate and I'm an activist and this is like my passion, my life, people reach out to me and are like, my cousin is having psychotic episodes, or I think he's like, what do I do? And I have to be like, I don't know what to tell you to do because we still don't have the infrastructure that we need to be able to help people in the best way. If you call anybody, and most of them will end up calling the police, so you have to, you know, so I made a pamphlet like how to call the police for help if you're a person of color, if you're a BIPOC, because the trauma is so real. Yeah. You know, and I walk them through like, they're gonna possibly handcuff the person you love. So be prepared for that. Like, that's very triggering, you know? Yeah. Like all of these things, like loved ones they want to help the people they love, not hurt them, but the way things are now is there's, you know, there's not,
No,
there's
it's not
things are starting. Things are starting. Alternatives to policing are starting. Mutual aid. All of these things are starting to get going because people are realizing like the cure comes from us.
Yes.
Right. Like
yes,
we have
absolutely.
the cure. We have the cure. We just need to do it ourselves.
So can you talk a little bit about this? Because it's funny because this is exactly what I was going to ask you about. This, I mean, this idea of even having a pamphlet about calling the police. Like I would so not even call the police because it's like, who should people call? Like, what is the, and also thinking about defunding, you know, there's all this conversation, which I never thought we'd really be like here talking about this. It's so exciting. Is about what are the ways that you're imagining a system that is supporting mental illness in this way versus like criminalizing our brothers and sons.
Yeah, and I think that like Patrice, for example, like Black Lives Matter, they've been doing, I mean, herself before Black Lives Matter, she's been doing this like her whole life, and she's been doing prison reform especially, and you know, everything's interconnected. So prisons are our mental health asylums. They're
Absolutely.
our you know, sanctioned mental health asylums. So
state run.
The work that she's been doing, everything is all related. That's why, like, I look up to her. She's such a big idol of mine. Like, I don't know, you're not supposed to have idols, and she's my age. I think I just have a crush on her. So. I just have a crush on her.
I think we all do.
She knows. I'm not secret about it, but like the whole Work with Measure R was like prison related, but also mental health related, right? So it's like if we defund the police, where does the money go? Like into our communities, right?
Right.
Because the communities with the most resources, they're the safest.
Yeah.
We don't. It's like we need to do preventative work, so that we don't have to do punitive work. And everything, you know, like all these like care not cages or cuidar, you know, castigar, like all these, it's just pointing to like Measure R when it passed. Like one of the things that I heard is that, you know, like we could have like mental health clinics on our blocks. We could, you know, so people don't have to leave their community, and because that's another thing. Like my brother didn't want to ask for help because my father was admitted against his will twice to a maximum psychiatric ward, and we visited him. And this is the kind of place when I was pregnant with my son, which is like another issue. Like I guilt myself because I'm like, my anxiety, you know, like because when I was pregnant, all my levels plummeted. Yeah, the doctor almost wanted to take my baby out because he was like, your baby's in. As soon as my dad went into the psychiatric ward, he was like, your baby's in extreme distress. Yeah. You know, and all your levels are off. And that's when, unfortunately, that's like the last time that I talked to my father. And so when he died, it had been like over 7 years that I talked to him. Wow. But because I was like, I can't do this to my baby. My baby's not even born. And the one thing that I told myself is that I was not, whatever I did, I was going to make sure that my kids never dealt with the trauma that I had to deal with. Yeah. And my son was not born and already dealing with that trauma. And it was a very like real moment of like, I have no boundaries. Yeah. I can't just be the person that helps my entire, but then like now I'm like, I left him and look what happened. It's terrible. Yeah. You know, but at the same time, it's like, there has to be a structure. Yeah. Right? So back to like the Measure, like there could be local clinics, because that psychiatric ward, Gary went there. Like he knew what that was like. Nobody would want to be there. Yeah. Like nobody would want to voluntarily put themselves in that place. They are very, very. They're like prisons. I mean, they're like prisons. You have to punch a code to come in. Yeah. They buzz the doors. You can't wear socks. Yeah. Like right now in jail, my brother has a foot infection because they don't let people with that are suicidal. They have them wear this like dehumanizing robe that shows their sides. It's kind of like a blanket with a belt, and it shows, but on a belt, just like cinched in, and it shows their sides. They're not allowed to wear underwear. They're not allowed to wear socks. They're not allowed to wear anything that they could kill themselves with. But it's like, if you're in jail during coronavirus times and you have a foot infection because you can't wear socks and it's filthy and you're wearing this really uncomfortable thing all the time and you have limited they take mobility, away your they take away like your freedoms when you are suicidal because they have to watch you. But then it's like that, none of it makes sense.
None of it makes
when
sense.
You think about it. When you think about it, I'm like, none of
You're
it.
trying to keep someone alive by like basically murdering them slowly.
I'm like, it doesn't, and even like life without parole, like, if it, but also I want to just say, like, if anybody else had killed my brother, I don't know if I would have this perspective right now, just to be very honest, because I don't know what I would be feeling. Like, I have felt I wanted, like, I have been mad at my brother, and he's my brother. You know what I mean? So if he wasn't my brother, I probably would not be the place where I am now. But I think that's what's so unique about my situation, is that I'm able to see this with eyes of love.
You're able to see him as human, and I think that's the thing that's missing in this whole system, is that we don't see, we're not seeing the humanity of one another. And so
it's where people go. I have one earring.
No, all good.
It's where people go. People go. They just like get put away, and then I have a shirt that says, it's from Forgive Everyone, that says like prison doesn't cure societal problems. It just like hides them. We just put it away, and like we don't want it. It's like that closet in our house or that drawer, where we're just like, I don't know what this is.
I don't know about it. I have a lot of those drawers.
Yes, and I feel like that's prison, and it's so terrible. Like, I can't share about all of these things, because like, we talked about, I'm scared of my brother being harmed in prison.
Right.
I am, there's prison gangs, there's sheriff prison gangs who have killed people, and it's very scary, like, to know and I remember one time I asked him, like, he was having an anxiety attack or a panic episode, and I'm still so naive, so I'm like, ask for help. Ask the police to help you. And he's like, they just like chained me to they handcuffed him to like a bed for 5 hours, and like he just had to deal with it. Like, they just did it so that he wouldn't be a danger they didn't do it to help him. I think they did it so he wouldn't be a danger. But I'm just like, that's so sad. I feel like that's our society. Our society doesn't want to help. They just want to prevent people from being a danger to other people.
Yeah,
but they don't understand that it's connected.
It's connected. It's totally connected. And looking at we have a line in our show. Samad Rahim Guerra, one of our amazing artists, wrote this line about it was based on a Mi'kmaq elder who had talked to him about justice, like what justice really could be, and what it would be if the person who perpetrated a crime stood in a circle surrounded by those who loved him and could remind him of his good. Like, what kind of justice would that look like? And I honestly never, again, like, that idea felt very much like healing justice. Yes, like healing justice. But in order for that to happen, there has to be a way that we see our humanity in one another. Like, we don't see the person who's perpetrated a crime as other than us.
And we have to do it on our own time. Yeah. Because like my brother, I was so worried about protecting him because he's my littlest brother. I taught him to walk. 9 months or 10 months, I taught him to walk. So like, I'm so protective of him. And I also felt guilty for leaving him alone with my dad. My brother and I went to UCLA, and then he was left alone with my father for so long. And so, then it's like, I thought education was going to free me or like help me uplift my community. And my brother went to UCLA, and, it also like left my brother alone and put him to debt. And, there's no cure. It's like the only cure is to take care of your people. Yeah. So if my family, if there had been a way to take care of us for my dad, because when I was little, we would look for him on the weekends in jails and hospitals. Right. So he wouldn't come home. And there was another guy with his name that always got arrested too. So sometimes we'd see him, and then it'd be like, that's not our dad. That's the other man with the same name. Like, why are you always? But it's like, how is that the only way for people to receive help? Right. And especially if you're like undocumented or you have a visa, like you're scared to even ask for services because you're not supposed to be here. So that adds another level of complication.
It's all connected.
Yeah, but that's why the Breathe Act If you haven't looked into it, look into it.
Yes.
The Breathe Act, it's amazing. If it passes, I wish that we could have like a BLM president.
Yes.
Like, to be honest, because I just, what the TV pilot that I'm writing is like an abolitionist world. Like, what if all our dreams came true? What if revolutions happened?
Yes.
What if we were economically sustainable? What if, we had dealt kind of with the structural racism?
Is it in the future? It's written.
Yes,
as
it's in the future, but they haven't. So this is like a utopian world, but but they haven't dealt with mental health, so it's still unsafe. So the pilot takes place as they're forced to build a mental health infrastructure, because that's still, no matter everything else that we fix in terms of food security and all of that,
it's still the place where we're lacking.
Right. If we don't take mental health seriously and treat it like something that needs our attention, then there's still going to be people with schizophrenia. There's still going to be people with bipolar.
Yeah.
There's still going to be people with depression. There's still going to be people with anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how perfect the world is. You can go to the moon. Like, our blood memory is here. Our trauma is here. For us to get to that point, we would have to have fought and lost. We would have lost a lot to get to that point.
Right.
And we carry all of that with us. And I think to not acknowledge that, to not acknowledge what you carry, and to not acknowledge. And I had this problem because I worked at a school, and they brought in somebody to do like it was a white person. It was a white person. They brought in a white person to teach me mindfulness, right? And then, which is fine, because that's like their jam, right? That's it was like the thing to do. But I was like, wait a minute. But what if I don't have food to eat?
Right.
Like, how can I think myself into positivity? Right? And she was like, well, it all starts with thinking that you can do it. And I'm like, okay, but I'm actually hungry.
You're like, I'm actually hungry. I need an apple before I do this meditation.
Right. And then I remember thinking, am I just being a bitch because I don't trust her? Or is this, because I looked around, I'm like, does anybody not? And then now we see it's like toxic positivity. You can't tell people that if something bad happens to them, it's their fault.
Or that you can just
it's like the new
positively think yourself out of.
It's like it's the new age bootstrap theory.
Yeah.
It's the new age bootstrap theory to be like, just think it through.
And that's actually, a lot of our work with Contratiempo has been around this idea, this premise of radical joy, like joy as a weapon, joy as a radical practice.
That's when I feel like that's why I will not let myself get defeated. I get really depressed, and I got to a point where I was like, I can't be this person anymore. My brother, if my brother died and then I became this person, his spirit will die.
Yeah.
His soul will hurt.
Yeah. It's so much bigger than you. Right?
If he sees me, this is who I now am. It's all I can't add more misery. I can't do that. I just won't allow myself it. And so I started taking antidepressants. I was really against it. And I had a terrible psychiatrist, because for a lot of those out there. Yeah, because the person that gives you medicine is not your therapist most of the time, right? So they're usually doctors, which they're usually colder. They don't know. Yeah. And it's difficult, but I would say don't be scared to take it. I was so scared because I was like, organic mom.
Yes.
I even bought my kids organic clothes. Yes. And I was like, I made all their foods, and we cloth diapers, and I love essential oils, and I heal with my sage.
But there's also the mental health is chemical. There are chemicals going on in our brains, and I think that's I can relate a lot to that. Again, you asked me how old my son was when we knew something was happening with him, and he was so little, and we just started with some medicine right now, like 3 months ago, and the amount that is given him space to just given him space to breathe and be able to it's not, we're not, nobody's
It's
fixed.
not a cure.
It's not a cure.
Yeah, it's not a cure.
But there's an ability to just be able to breathe and create some space. And he doesn't see himself as the one who's always having the meltdowns or the bad one, or the, you know, like he's able to just, his perspective is like, it's literally like it's given us just some space to breathe. That's what it feels like. And so I don't think
that's how I feel about my antidepressants, because I remember being like, I love feeling dizzy and like experiencing different sensations. And I was like, oh, am I just gonna be like high? Like
high all the time.
I'm gonna be high all the time. This is nice. Nothing, right? I'm just still me. So I'm like, I don't think it's working, because I'm still who I am, and I still cry, and I still get mad, and like, can you change, like, you know? And they're like, well, it's a, you know, it just. But then I realized, like, I was able to get out of bed. I was able to start like an exercise routine, or like to run, go on walks and hike and run. I was able to have that space where I didn't hurt so much that I could start to heal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And maybe
it gave space.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe some people don't need it. I know people talk a lot of shit about it. But antidepressants have really helped me. My mom suffered with anxiety her entire life, so much so that I have her anxiety. Yeah. And that really came out when I became a mom. It's you know, and that's also like colonial trauma. Yes. You know, war trauma. She was a product of war, from Salvador. And so that's definitely real, and it's true, because when I went to Salvador, my cousins were like, lock your cars. Yeah. And the little 5-year-olds already were like, lock your cars. And I remember talking shit to my mom, because I'm like, Mom, you're so paranoid. Like, what? And then it's like, no, like, now it's rooted in real. Yeah, no, it's like survival. It's all survival. So, but if you need medicine, my son also, I think we're like 99% positive he has ADHD. Since he was little, he would do things and then think about it. Yeah. And obviously always get yelled at. Yeah. And it was really hard for me, because people would just assumed I was like a bad mom. Yeah. And for me, it was really hard, because I saw you're not a bad mom. I know. But I also like didn't put enough boundaries. Yeah. Because I saw that he had a problem with it. So to me, I was like, I had a really hard, it took me years to figure out, how do I put a boundary on a person with a special need? Yeah. Right? Like, so that it's like loving, and also not abusive. Allowing him to run all over. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But also not like shaming him for something he can't control. Yeah. And he told me, because I've been honest with my kids, I'm like, I'm taking medicine for my depression, because they saw my depression. You know, they saw me sleeping and not being able to get out of bed. Like, it's like we think we're hiding things from them, but no, they know. They know all of it. Yeah, when you can't play with them. Yes. You know. Anyway, Annette, I'm just conscious that the IG gods are gonna kick us off in a second, but I feel like we need a part 2. Like I feel like there's so many questions and things that I want to talk about that we didn't get to, but this is we can totally do a part 2. I know. But if your child needs help, it's okay to help them. You're not my son came up to me and he said, Mama, I think I need some medicine, because I can't do this by myself. Yeah. And his friend has ADHD, and his friend started taking medicine at school, and it helped him. Yeah. He was happier, you know, because he wasn't getting yelled at by the teachers and the kids all the time. Totally. No, my son too, I was saying, like, he said, I feel angry because it's easier to feel angry and then feel sad. Right. He literally said that to me, and I was like, because you have control over the anger. And yes, he's like, it's easier for me to feel angry because I want to hide my sadness, is what he said. And I was like, that was the point where I was like, okay, like the way that we're helping him needs to shift. And they are going to kick us off in about a minute. So I am so serious. We need to do a part 2. And I hear y'all in the chat want a part 2, maybe even a part 3. But I just want to acknowledge you just for who you are in the world and the legacy that you're now leading. You know, I think your brother would be so proud of what you're doing and creating in the world, and just so much love to you and your family. And just really, I just want to, I want to lift you up as a, poderosa mama. You were like killing it as a mama. I don't do well with emotions.
No, but I feel so inspired and so just grateful for your ability. Like you shared with us so much today, and there's so many parts. I'm going to go back and re-listen, and this is recorded, so people want to, you can share it out to people who missed it today, and if people want to comment and ask questions, we can also respond. But thank you so much, Annette. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful afternoon, and we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch for part 2.
Okay.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.